On the Talkback Show, on the radio, or whatever audiovisual device you choose to use. Welcome to the GBC podcast, where we talk about the Packers in our hometown of Green Bay. We are the official podcast of the Lot 1 Tailgate Party, which is at Lambeau Field every home game. This is episode 125, created November 17th, 2025. I'm John. I'm in Appleton, Wisconsin. Along with me, Jeff in Minnesota and Neil on the East Coast. Say hello, gentlemen, and tell us what you're drinking.
Hello, gentlemen. Tonight, I'm just glad we got a win. Penelope, we did bourbon. That's all I got.
And I was in New York for the game, and one of the things that's great about New York is all of the fabulous Italian food. A hidden star of Italian food is Broccoli Rob. I'm having Brooklyn's other half brewery, Rob, double dry hopped IPA.
All right. And for no particular reason, I've made a tropical mountain punch for my beverage. Well, what are we looking at this week? It was a trip to New York. Maybe a few mistakes in the game, but nonetheless, gentlemen, the team scored 27 points, walked away with a victory. What do we have coming up heading into week 12? We will have two games to preview this week. But gentlemen, lots of things to talk about in this game, lots of mistakes. But other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play?
Jordan Love was absolutely amazing. You look at his stat line, 19 of 24 for 250 yards, a few touchdowns. Malik Willis gets a touchdown. There was nothing that he could do. And most importantly, he was not going to be denied, especially on that game-winning drive. He was all over the place. There were so many conversions on third downs, so many times that he's moving out of the pocket to make these big plays. It was a big-time quarterback in every single way.
Neil, are you sure that's Jordan Love's stat line?
Yeah, I said 19 of 24 for 250. Oh, wait, no, he had drops. And there were so many drops in the game that there were 6 plays that counted as incompletions for him that were drops, 8 total drops for our wide receivers, a bunch of big ones. But take those drops out. Again, he was averaging over 10 yards per catch if the receivers actually make their catches. And it was just the way that he just took command of the game that was so much fun.
Neil, give the actual number now, the actual stat line.
13 of 24 for 174. So, yeah,
so
much less gaudy, just barely above 50%. And somebody who doesn't watch the game says, he didn't have that great a game. And
exactly.
You didn't watch football.
A person just looking at the stat line is going to say this was a pedestrian affair for Jordan Love. And then they will look at it and see that, Malik Willis went in for 7 whole plays and got a touchdown out of 7 plays. There's an eye test to this game, Neil, and you were at the game. That eye test got passed, did it not?
It was very beautiful the way Jordan was just moving all around and finding wherever the receivers were, running with his legs if necessary. And of course, that's what led to the injury, but thankfully came back. There were some nervous moments, but the final touchdown to Christian Watson was coming right toward me. That is shown on the 4th screen. And just watching that whole play develop and Watson go into the corner, like, holy shit, Watson made that catch. And yes, there were drops, but especially on that last drive, there were also some amazing catches. Watson's catch, Savion Williams' catch was also an amazing catch. And it was beautiful to see it when it was all coming together.
Yeah, the great thing about that Watson catch, as well as both of his touchdown catches, is the knock against him early in his career is not being able to get contested balls. Jeff, contested balls are your favorite kind, aren't they?
I tell you what, we'll take contested balls. We love contested balls, John, and this is why he was drafted. Snatching those contested balls.
You have to admit there's a nice hard throw, at least from Malik Willis, that allowed one of those contested balls to be caught, too.
Went right in the hole.
Right in the hole.
Watson finally not only is catching these contested balls, but he's using his size and he's catching in space. We've been yearning for this. Let him go up and get the damn ball. And that's exactly what he did. He fought off. He was covered on both of these catches. That's why we have him. Good job, Christian Watson.
Back to that eye test, Neil. He is confident out there as well. I mean, you don't see him being trepidatious about the knee injury at all.
No, and the other thing that was not trepidatious is Matt LaFleur's play calling, especially in the first quarter. The ball was going all over the place.
What has Matt LaFleur done for you lately, Neil?
Well, we didn't do everything great as far as the passing, but there was absolutely this sense that the ball could go absolutely anywhere, whether it was throwing it to Jacobs, whether it was running outside, whether it was inside passes, anywhere the ball had the potential of going. And it was a lack of predictability. We were able to take advantage of the play action on a number of those plays. And the first quarter in particular, we had 84 rushing yards in that first quarter. And it's not like trying to just junk it up the middle. It was moving all over the place. You had the big run by Bo Melton. The big run by Malik Willis. And it wasn't just Jacobs, but Jacobs also did his part. Beautiful as far as the movement in that first quarter.
Did Matt LaFleur listen to our podcast from last week?
I don't think we were the only people saying that last week, to be fair.
I think that, there's a few people out there.
But seriously, though, to see such a marked change in the play calling, it just wasn't vanilla. And we've been screaming for this. Make it unpredictable. That's why we drafted these receivers. Make it weird. Make it hard for the defense to key. And that's exactly what they finally did.
Now, mind you, Jordan Love had -1 yard passing in the first quarter. So, but again, that had to do with drops, but it wasn't everything that was working out perfectly. And, we were down 7-0 at the end of the first quarter, but the way that the ball was moving, like even after the Giants scored on their first possession, I felt confidence in what the offense was doing. Even with Love going out, like Malik Willis showed command when he had the ball. It's like, yes. Oh yeah, that's why we kept him rather than get some mid-round draft pick for him, because he did what he needed to do. And if he had to play the whole game, I'm confident that we would have won as well.
Or do you bring in Malik Willis for some kind of gadget play while Jordan Love is still out there?
I think that is doing what we've complained about, which is telegraphing what we're actually going to do on the play.
I think this team is beyond gadget plays. Gadget plays are for those bubble teams trying to snatch a win, things like that. I think Green Bay, granted we have 3 terrible losses on the season and a tie, I think we're still in the driver's seat for being in a playoff position. I don't know that this is a gadget play team.
No, but you can definitely move things around. And Jeff, I hate to bring up the Jeff sweep, but those plays are things that can keep the defense off balance. And that end around to Bo Melton was a beautiful play, really critical as far as keeping that drive going.
Slightly different than a Jeff sweep,
sure.
But nonetheless, your wide receiver coming around. But there's some great blocking that happens on that as well, with your offensive line literally showing one direction and twisting and shifting around to come back in the other direction. There's some great blocking on that play as well.
And John Fitzpatrick downfield was fabulous as far as his block.
Yeah, I mean, Fitzpatrick clearly has hands of stone, which is great for blocking. Unfortunately, some of those short passes are not conducive to those hands.
Well, in addition to the play calling, the offensive line did well in this game. They seemed to be more active. Now, there were times where there were some Olay blocks, and it did appear that there were some perhaps missed assignments.
Jordan Morgan, perhaps? Yeah.
Well, but it's a work in progress. We know that with the injuries and things like that.
Jeff, what I would say is that it's improved. I wouldn't say that it was good. 8 hits on Jordan Love, and the fact that so many of his great passing plays were him essentially running out of the pocket and just making a throw on the fly as he was running. I mean, that's not what you want your quarterback to ideally do. Jordan Love did it masterfully in the game, but that's not ideal.
But he seemed to be a little more in control in this game. He didn't have his happy feet. He didn't seem as unsure as he did.
Control. He was completely in control. Can you think of more than 2 bad plays in the entire game?
No, but go back to last week when against Philadelphia, he looked like he had happy feet, and he did not look like he was comfortable back there. Whereas even though he was being forced out of the pocket in this game, there was much more confidence. So whatever they did, good job.
They weren't playing the Eagles. I think that was the key.
Well, with that said, though, when we look at the overall picture of this game, this is a New York Giants team that is heavily depleted due to injury. And then they fire their head coach. So they've got an interim coach. And now they bring in Jameis Winston at quarterback. This is a game that you look at all of this stuff on paper and you think, oh, Green Bay should have dominated this game. And I think that's what a lot of fans are upset about is they're not getting a team that's dominating on every single play. Well, a win is a win. We'll take that. That opening drive that you alluded to, Neil, it was tough, but I almost had a feeling because of the way the defense had to go into this game, they didn't know what to expect out of Winston and this new Giants offense. I feel like that whole opening drive was just feeling them out. And it's evidenced by the next 3-4 series within that first half that the Giants just are not able to have any success.
They had 2 series where there were problems. And the problem is it was all the long sustained drives. First drive, 9 plays, 65 yards, 2 straight 3-and-outs. Beautiful. 11 plays, 68 yards. Kneel down. 16 plays, 56 yards, 9:46 of clock time in their first drive of the second half. Second drive of the second half, 15 plays, 85 yards, 7 minutes and 59 seconds of clock time. They were held to only 3:26 of clock time, 10 plays, 51 yards on their final real drive where Williams had the interception. But there are only 2 drives where the defense dominated start to finish and forced a 3-and-out.
Yeah, there's certainly some difficulty there as well. 7 of 14 on third down conversions. Of those 7 non-conversions, the Giants go 3 of 4 on 4th down. The one that they didn't get, though, was a pretty big play.
I consider adding the 3rd and 4th together. So functionally, the Giants were 10 out of 14 on 3rd and 4th down situations and conversions. And that's not getting off the field. And that's why our offense was limited. But let's go to the drops now, because one of the problems that we had was our D-backs in perfect position and then deciding to drop the ball. Now, there were only 4 drops by our D-backs as opposed to 8 drops by our wide receivers and tight ends. But still, this game could have been completely different if we make 1 or 2 even of those plays. Shortens their drives and gives us better field position. This could have been a blowout pretty quickly in the game if some of those things had fallen into place.
And even when our own defenders are defending each other.
Right.
That was just brutal. I mean, yeah, they're flying around out there, but oh my God, what a frustrating look.
And altogether, not a lot of big plays that you need. The 2 that you get, as we mentioned, there's the 4th down play with the Parsons sack. There's the 1 interception that isn't dropped for Evan Williams. And then there's the final play of the game, Neil. In the stat sheet, that final play goes to strip sack fumble for Micah Parsons, fumble recovery for Rashawn Gary. Now, stat-wise, it's there all season, but it's as time expires. But these are big plays in big moments from the people you need them to come from.
Yeah, big plays and big moments. We needed some big plays and some non-big moments. So
right. That would be fun too.
So I did rewatch the game partly because when you're at a road stadium, do a great job of showing the highlights of the team you're not cheering for, and they don't show any of the good highlights of the team that you're cheering for. So I basically had to rewatch the game to get highlights of all of our best plays. Yeah. But in rewatching the game, I also looked at what we were doing as far as our defensive front. And yeah, the pressure was not there. You know, we often had 4 guys going against only 5. So they didn't even have a running back in to defend. And most of the guys were being stopped one-on-one on the pass rush, giving Winston time because Winston did make a lot of big plays. I mean, I was afraid of Jameis Winston's arm going into the game, and he showed off his arm in a positive sense in a lot of cases. We got the negative too, which was beautiful, but he made some big plays, and it was mainly because we did not have pressure on him in a lot of passing situations.
Yeah, only 2 sacks, 1 tackle for loss, and 5 QB hits.
And John already mentioned 2 of those QB hits. And then we also had the true anomaly of Edgerrin Cooper having a chance for a tackle for loss and allowing a long 1st down play. And I don't even know how that happens. You could probably do that play 20 times, and Cooper makes it 21 times and somehow got the -1 in this game.
And ultimately, the Packer offense, though, does get on track. The Cooper play leads to a touchdown there, but Green Bay gets 13 points in the second quarter. The Giants score 6. It's tied at 13 at the end of the first half. Both teams with a mixed extra point. Neil, how windy was it there? I mean, was that the huge factor in all this?
One of the entertaining aspects of the game was watching all of the food wrappers flying around the stadium, and food wrappers were going everywhere. You just sort of wondered when it was going to be a case where it would actually affect somebody on the field. And yeah, it was really windy at that game. And I wore 2 extra layers basically because of the wind that was present. The temperature didn't seem that bad if there was no wind, but oh wait, there was a lot of wind. So it just felt a lot colder than it otherwise would have been. And yeah, you could see that swirling and the goalposts moving back and forth. And it was really not until we had the brief rain that things calmed down a little bit as far as the wind.
You just won't let yourself say wind chill, will you?
It's a made up thing, John. It's a made up thing. It is not a real measurement. It's a made up thing.
Yeah, what about that rain, though? I thought there was like 0% precipitation in the forecast. Again, blame the weathermen, right?
Absolutely. And that rain was actually very funny because the rain came down very briefly, but it was really a cold rain. It was cold, battering, windy rain. And the aisles basically filled up with Giants fans. The guy behind me said, "Fuck this. I'm not watching a 2-8 team in the cold rain."
Neil, that wind on TV. So there was at least one play where it looked like there was a flag. There was something yellow, like blew onto the field or whatever. And I'm like, oh, great. Here we go. And it was like, oh, no, that's trash.
Yeah, I thought the same thing, too. Every time you see something, I was like, no, that's too small for a flag.
There was a lot of trash on the field and in the air and sort of flying around above the field as well.
So let's talk about the elephant in the room here, the asshats. So it's a windy day. It's challenging for the kickers. We've got a new kicker. And, well, he didn't do very well.
And it was surprising because I was watching warmups and he kicked a beautiful 60-yard field goal right down the center of the uprights with some room to spare. And so I was feeling very confident about going with Haversick. And then, well, then all hell broke loose once he actually had to kick it in a manner that counted.
Do you think the swirling wind just got in his head? He was trying too hard. He was overcompensating.
I think that was part of it, but I think it was also impacting the snaps to some extent. Those aren't coming back as quickly. And kicking is very much about timing. And, you see the ball and you got to get it, figure out how to get it down. And for a kicker who is less experienced, that is going to have a bigger impact. But the winds weren't swirling that badly that it should have impacted how far off those kicks were. And the thing that I noticed that was weird about the way Haversick lined up is that he lined up on the left hash and was aiming for the right hash. And so that first missed extra point went wide right. And essentially he was hoping the wind was blowing in the opposite direction. So essentially he was hoping he kicks it towards the upright and it's going to push the ball back into the middle. He didn't kick from the middle of the field, which seemed a little bit weird. Like power yourself straight ahead rather than go from one upright and aim for the other goalpost and hope the wind pushes it back enough. I mean, essentially he outthought himself as far as the way he set himself up on that first kick. And the second one just looked like a complete shank.
It's like golfing, Neil. If you want to have your straightest drive, aim left and play for your slice, and you will hit that ball perfectly.
It really was that. It looked goofy lined up.
Well, at least their kicker missed one also.
Right. Yeah, and that's, like I said, that puts the score at 13-13 at halftime. Second half, a little bit different ball game. We'll note there's a 2-point conversion in there, right, to kind of fix things up. But second half, Neil, I mean, there's still some woes throughout the game with drop balls, missed interceptions, pass interference at the wrong time. Just so many things that go wrong with this team. But again, coming out on top.
Coming out on top because there came a point where it's like, no, screw it. We've got to score here. And like Jordan Love hit the zone on that final touchdown drive. I mean, he was in a great mood all game, but it was just like, there is no way we were going to be denied. And it's good that Love came into that zone because although our rushing was really, really good in the first quarter, 84 yards, we had 22 yards rushing in the second quarter, 12 in the third quarter, and 10 in the fourth quarter. That is, we had 44 total yards rushing in the final three quarters of the game, basically half of what we had in the first quarter. So our game lost its balance. It didn't matter because Jordan Love was that good, but there definitely was something that was a little bit different after that first quarter.
The receivers seem to feed off that confidence. And one of the things I want to highlight, which doesn't show up in Golden stats, the 35-yard defensive pass interference coming out of halftime in the third quarter. That 6-play, 66-yard drive, 35 yards of that. So half of it were that DPI. I want to see a lot more of those.
That 35 yards was actually basically the same as our total yardage, 37 yards only for the team. Obviously doesn't include penalty yards, but it was an aggressiveness that was noteworthy.
And that third quarter touchdown comes from a new Packer player and tight end, Josh Wiley. Now, this is a tight end, Jeff, at 6'7". This is a target that ideally you cannot miss, but there's a nice little chip block that Christian Watson pulls off on this one as well. I think he gets away with it, but it is a TD pass. So we get a tight end touchdown pass, but overall we don't get a great tight end performance on the day outside of that catch.
3 receptions for 6 yards on 4 targets. That's not a big performance. We need our tight ends to be more involved in that, but somehow that manages to overstate what the positive production was for our tight ends because Musgrave decided to take this in a completely different direction and almost killed us twice.
Right. This is a guy who you're expecting with his size and his speed to be running down the seam. He's supposed to be stretching that defense. And okay, his one pass is -1 yard. And then the drop is again in that same spot in the flat. That was a gift call to say that was a flat out drop rather than a catch and a fumble. It effectively changes the whole game right there. Not the whole game, but at least in that drive. But they're not using Musgrave the way you expected him to be used.
But essentially 2 targets and he fumbled the ball, whether it's a drop or a fumble. Like he fumbled both of the times that he got the ball. And how? That just doesn't seem possible. It's not like it was like this incredible play that knocked the ball out of his hands. He just didn't secure the football. And either one of those could have been a killer.
Even thinking about last week, remember the catch he made last week and he went down before he got to the first down. You could kind of tell he was covering that ball up. You have to wonder if there's a lot going on in practice with ball security with him, if he just doesn't have the confidence to hang on to that ball.
Well, these last 2 games would say, no, he doesn't. because he touched the ball twice in this game and he fumbled it both times. And he didn't play a lot of snaps in the second half.
Two.
You know,
He had two total snaps in the second half.
are the coaches, are the players kind of losing faith in him? I mean, he's a second round draft choice. Dude, this is not somebody that they took a flyer on in the 7th round. He needs to produce, and hopefully he can get it turned around because it just dropped in his lap. With Tucker being out now, it's his time to shine. He needs to prove that.
And yet Fitzpatrick is taking on a dominant role in the blocking game, and Wiley looks like he wants to take control as far as the receiving game. So Musgrave's got to make himself stand out as doing something unique that gives this offense a different way to attack a defense.
Just getting the receiving core in general to attack defenses would be great. Now, once again, 10 different receivers targeted, but the numbers overall still aren't that great.
We only had 2 receivers that had more than 1 reception in the game. Dobbs and Watson, both around 50 yards. Now, Watson, 2 touchdowns, big difference on that, but you've got to have more people involved. I mean, the number of people who make a catch is one thing, but it would be nice if they had more than 1 catch, and be nice if they had more than a couple yards on those catches.
And Golden credited with 3 targets, only 1 catch, the 1 catch for 24 yards. But Jeff, as you said earlier, there is also the one play that doesn't show up in the stat sheet that he gets the pass interference call. You can't count on that week to week either. But like you said, Neil, maybe it's concentrate on fewer receivers, bigger numbers would be nice. Spreading the ball around is fun. But if you're just not getting an attack out of that, it's not helping any.
Savion Williams came up huge. His one reception, 33 yards. That was his only target. This is a guy that comes in a walking boot, getting off the bus. He was good in the return game as well, but that catch, that had to happen. And Love clearly has confidence in him and that contested ball.
And the nice thing on that one, Jeff, is watching Love using his feet to buy time. He moved that pocket back, and you can see the hand go up like he's pushing someone downfield. Now, ideally, you're thinking, okay, what at this point, you want guys coming back to make a more higher percentage pass. But Love just said, no, go. And he launched it up. And Savion came down with a nice pass downfield.
Savion Williams was a super sub in that game. He actually only had 2 total snaps on offense, one of it a 33-yard reception, a little bit different than those sideline passes. The other super sub we had on offense was Bo Melton. He only had 1 snap on offense, and it was that 17-yard run. So a couple guys making their few plays count.
And the fourth quarter, Neil, gets a little bit exciting. Now, Green Bay is ahead at this point, 19-13. Giants score that touchdown. They go up a point, 20-19. Now it's feeling kind of dicey in that fourth quarter. You mentioned Giants fans leaving, but what's the feel in the stadium at this time, Neil?
That was one thing that was different about the game than Pittsburgh. I would say that there were at least as many Packers fans at this game as there were in Pittsburgh, but because the Giants stayed in the game, there was never a point where we really felt dominant. We got some go pack goes in there. We had a few situations. Certainly you could hear the Packers fans when big plays were made, but there were a lot of Giants fans. It was never this dejection that you had in Pittsburgh where they just sort of gave up on their team. The Giants fans are loyal fans. They were great fans. The ones who didn't leave certainly stayed involved throughout the game. And that is partly because we let them stick around in that game. And when the Giants went ahead, it's like, oh no, this isn't good. Bad things are happening here. And that's when Jordan Love just said, fuck this shit. We're winning this game. I don't care. I'm doing everything we need to win. We get the 2-point conversion. So we're up 7. It feels good. And then the Giants have this drive that just takes them right down the field. And you could tell that they're playing on that drive. They got the ball with 3:26 left. And it is clear that they wanted to score, get the 2-point conversion, and come away with a victory. They were milking clock on that drive. They were running the entire second half. The Giants had 90 yards rushing and 2 rushing touchdowns in that second half. And until the point where they had the interception by Evan Williams, they looked like they were going to be able to score the touchdown because they were moving the ball essentially at will against our team. They had a bunch of really big plays. And just the way that they were moving, I felt confident that if they scored the touchdown, they were also going to get the 2-point conversion. And so there was absolutely a sinking feeling for me and for others in the stadium. And, especially you talk about the crowd, right? The Packers crowd was not into it the same way that you would expect for a drive where you've got a 7-point lead. If that game had been going on at Lambeau, we would have been going nuts at Lambeau. And there were enough Packers fans that we could have made that level of noise, and we just didn't on that drive. And I think it came down to the concern about the defense and allowing them to just drive down the field.
Fortunately, this is where Jameis Winston's inexperience came in.
Oh, no, he's very
receivers.
experienced at throwing interceptions, Jeff. Come on. He's a guy who's thrown 30 interceptions in a year, okay? He's extremely experienced.
I'm glad he threw that interception because it wasn't anywhere close. And the good news is Evan Williams didn't drop the damn thing. It was a solid catch.
Hey, fifth time's the charm, Jeff.
I guess so. But our work was still not done here.
We obviously just were trying to kill clock there. And the sack that Jordan Love took on our final drive was clearly a just don't throw an incompletion because we want to have them with as little time as humanly possible and essentially take something if it's absolutely clear. Otherwise, just take the sack. And there was only one play on the next drive, was the strip sack. But there were other situations in the game where they could have made it more interesting, right? They left 3 points on the board, right? They went for it on fourth down at our 10-yard line and essentially gave up a field goal. And, they have a field goal, an additional 3 points there. And, well, this game also feels very different.
And let's not forget about our punter, Daniel Whelan. Gets a game ball. Yeah. There's just a few seconds left in the game. We need a good punt. Daniel Whelan comes through 61-yard punt. Now there was a 17-yard return, but he flipped the field again and made it too far for a Hail Mary pass.
Right. There's 10 seconds on the clock. You effectively have a chance for one big play, maybe. I don't think that they were going to get 2 out of bounds plays to get close to field goal range. Once the defense lined up, I think that the decision was made was to try to go deep instead of trying to do a short pass with a bunch, the Stanford band play. We aren't going to get a bunch of pitches there, but you essentially have 3 linemen rushing, and Micah Parsons just came alive on this single play.
Well, if I'm going to have any lineman rushing, I want Micah Parsons to be one of those guys.
But the person that I would like to see more out of is Rashawn Gary, because he was absent for so much of that game. And you saw that he was one-on-one in a lot of situations, and there just was no situation of him taking control. Yeah, he gets that number on that final strip sack, but that was fundamentally because he was just in the vicinity of what Micah Parsons did rather than that he did anything specifically on that play. And I don't know. It's a level of concern. I'm glad that Lucas Van Ness is close to coming back. Being able to have 3 guys who are able to really push the pass rush at the same time, I think is going to make a difference. And Lucas Van Ness is going to make Gary better because we're not getting that level of penetration for the pass rush from our interior defensive linemen. We need to have something going on differently in order to get that pressure that we need, or alternatively go back to the Fritz Schirmer and go to 5, send 6, etc. But we've got to be doing better as far as getting home in these games, especially if you're facing quarterbacks who are going to respond to pressure. Oh, wait, we're facing one of those in 2 weeks. The other thing that we're going to need our defense to do is, in making those stops, keeping the opposing team from having these really big periods. And specifically in that second half, the Giants had 198 yards of offense, including 136 yards of offense in the fourth quarter. We play teams that have big-time receivers and big-time running backs. That's a recipe for us not having a fun time. Let's make those stops and see this defense perform at the level that it has in a number of recent weeks.
Well, Neil, back in the 80s, we had terrible defenses, but we also had Lynn Dickey.
Yeah.
Sunday's game was kind of a statistical anomaly. So for the first time in 40 years, since actually October 6th of 1985, a Packers receiver has caught touchdown passes from 2 different Green Bay quarterbacks. On Sunday, it was Watson catching passes from Love and Willis. And October 6th of 1985, it was Phil Epps catching touchdown passes from Randy Wright and Lynn Dickey.
He probably ran backwards on a punt return that day too.
And the big thing with that, Jeff, is the Packers beat the Detroit Lions that day 43-10. So a win, that's the secret. You have to have a receiver get 2 touchdown passes from different quarterbacks in the game to secure your win. That and have your fans walk across a bridge. We got it all figured out. That and score 27 points. 27 points means a win as well. Bam, done. Everything falls into place. Once again, the Packers 27-20 over the New York Giants puts them to 6-3-1 on the season. We'll talk about Neil's great weekend in New York City. Just to look ahead real quick, though, 2 games coming up in the next week. It's the Vikings at home, then at the Lions. Neil, more importantly, it's deer hunting and Thanksgiving, right?
It is, although I am going to take off most of Sunday to be in Lambeau Field for the Packers-Vikings game, see John in lot one, and hopefully see a Packers victory.
You're going to have a tough morning on Sunday because you have to watch a Premier League match as well, don't you?
Yeah, it's the North London Derby. I haven't mentioned Arsenal yet this season, but we're top of
No,
the Premier
I'm
League.
going to make you talk about it because I know it's going to be painful for you to figure out what your Sunday morning is going to be like, at least the first half, right?
I'll catch at least the first half of the Derby, and it's going to kill me to leave that game, but it would also kill me to miss Packers-Vikings at Lambeau.
Get there early, do some tailgating, go watch the match, come back, catch a little more tailgating, head into the stadium. It'll be fine. If you could really work it out, Neil, you'd go out to your deer stand for a little bit before you even head back into Green Bay, right?
That is in the realm of possibility.
It is in the realm of possibility. So we wish you the best on that. Tailgating will happen in Green Bay as well on Sunday for that noon matchup with the Minnesota Vikings. And we expect a good crowd in Green Bay. But before we talk about that, Neil, New York City, Packer fans, Kettle of Fish, among other things. How did it go?
There were a lot of Packers fans throughout New York City. I don't usually expect to see a lot of gear from any visiting team, right? There are a lot of people around New York City, but it was just throughout the city as we were walking around, you just sort of randomly see people in Packers gear, sort of as if it were a much smaller city. I mean, you expect that if you're in a Pittsburgh, but not in New York. But Cheesehead TV did host a gathering at the legendary Packers bar in the West Village, Kettle of Fish. It's a great place to watch any sort of game. I've had a great time so many times there. You had Nagler there. You had Matt Ramage there. There were a bunch of other people there. It was a very social atmosphere. It wasn't like a Packers everywhere thing where they had to have events. It was just a place where people could gather and talk. So I talked to Ramage a fair amount. He was a really fun guy to talk to. I met his friend Kevin, Matt and Kevin, both Green Bay East class of 1999. So we had 3 Green Bay East guys all together in this photo, just as we have 3 Green Bay East guys together on the screen.
It's what it takes. It takes 3 Green Bay East guys together to get a win for the Green Bay Packers.
That means we need to get Jeff to more games, though.
That's right, Jeff.
I was at Kettle Fish for 3 or so hours, and it was packed most of the time I was there. The next morning, just walking around, grabbing a bagel for breakfast. Again, Packers fans that were all over the place. And I talked to Packers fans at Kettle of Fish who were from all over the place. It was fun talking to people about, their hometown. You had conversations about Omro and about all of these little towns throughout Wisconsin, because it's a gathering place for people from Wisconsin, whether they live in Wisconsin now, whether they lived in Florida, California, Rhode Island, all over the place, and even Packers fans from Ireland. And it was really neat talking to Mark from Ireland. He's became a Packers fan in the 90s, essentially because of a reaction against the Dallas Cowboys. So he got the appropriate initiation of sort of a little bit of suffering before seeing the glory of the mid-90s Packers. And I really enjoyed talking with Mark about the similarities in the cultures in Wisconsin and Ireland, both of them about 4 to 5 million people. Both of them have this celebration of socialization and drinking. And he just said, like, when I'm in Wisconsin, it seems like I'm in Ireland. And when I talk to people from Wisconsin, it's like I'm talking with people who are from Ireland. There is this definite kinship in the way that the people in both places approach life. And hopefully we'll be able to get Mark on in a podcast for a future episode, because he was a great chat. And then the other thing about going to a game in New York is you can take the train to the stadium, and you take a special train to New Jersey, and then you take a separate train from there to the Meadowlands. And both of those trains were completely packed with Packers fans. And it was really fun just sort of having this camaraderie of all of these Packers fans just sitting on the trains from New York and through New Jersey. And that level of camaraderie on the train is something that is difficult to get otherwise, but it's something that I love for sporting events in New York in general. And, for example, coming back after a Mets game or going to a Mets game, you've got this train full of people that all have this common sense of purpose, and it makes for a really fun atmosphere.
Well, there is no train station near Lambeau Field, and but it doesn't matter. We're going to get people in. 8 a.m. tailgating will start. The Lot 1 tailgate party will be up and running Sunday morning as well, among other things. But it's the Minnesota Vikings coming into town, Jeff. And, because this is your city nowadays, we have to ask you about the 4-6 Vikings. On Sunday, did you keep an eye? Were you side-eyeing that Bears-Vikings game as well?
No.
Okay.
You've watched a few games this year, at least, right?
That's a perfect analysis from Jeff for the Vikings-Packers game coming up on Sunday. Thanks, Jeff.
I was focused on the Packer game, believe me. So to Neil's point, yes, I have watched other Vikings games. My wife's a Vikings fan. Yes, they're traveling to Lambeau this week. Right now, the Packers are 6.5-point favorites. The Vikings have loaded up all their eggs in one basket, whatever you want to call it. They're all in on J.J. McCarthy. He's a rookie quarterback, essentially. He's doing rookie things. Let's get to the quarterback. Let's rattle this guy. Let's make sure that he's hearing footsteps before he hears footsteps. He's going to make mistakes. He's throwing a boatload of interceptions. He's not particularly careful with the ball. Again, if our defense can get that pressure, he's going to make mistakes. If our defensive backs can catch the damn ball, there's a lot of opportunities for turnovers here. He's got great wide receivers, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, yes, but he's got to be upright to get the ball to these guys. We have to have our defense have a really good breakout game here. Our offense, I think, will be fine. We're at home. You guys will bring the energy. Looking forward to a great game. Go Pack, go.
The thing that you worry about with a Minnesota Vikings offense are those receivers. They're capable of making huge plays. If you look at teams and how many 10 or more yard plays that they've allowed in the season, the Packers are first in the NFL, allowing only 96 of them. You change that to 20 yards or more. The Packers have only allowed 23 of those plays on the season. That is also first in the NFL. So we are the best in the NFL at preventing big plays. And then if you look at those quarterbacks, one of the best statistics for measuring effectiveness of a quarterback is expected points added per play, EPA per play. Jordan Love is plus 0.29 EPA per play. That's first in the NFL. J.J. McCarthy is 35th at negative 0.22 expected points added per play. That is, every time he's got the ball, he's actually reducing the odds that the Vikings are going to score. That sounds like a pretty good matchup.
Couple other notes. It's a short week. The Packers then will play in Detroit on Thanksgiving. Lions recently dropped to 6-4 in another primetime low-scoring affair. And Neil, the Philadelphia Eagles have held their last two opponents to single-digit points. What do you think this means? I know the Lions have a game this weekend as well, but what do you think that means? Your concern usually is Green Bay being the road team on the short week. How are you looking at Green Bay and Detroit?
I have to say, I do have concerns. But on the other hand, Detroit has not played up to the level this year that they have previously. They are actually in third in the NFC North right now. And it's partly because they've had a tougher schedule than the other teams. But they've definitely shown growing pains with their new coordinators. Obviously, we beat them in the first week of the season. That was a glorious game to watch. Obviously, Dan Campbell is going to have them up for this game in Detroit. But I feel better about this game than I would normally, just because we're seeing things in these games that are pointing to where our true potential is. And Love just keeps getting better. He clearly relishes being on the big stage. And I just think at a core level, Love is better than Jared Goff. Going back to EPA per play, Jared Goff is 9th in the NFL, but he's a whole 10th of a point per play worse than Jordan Love. So we need to put pressure on Jared Goff. I think that's the key to the game. If we don't put pressure on Jared Goff, they've got too many weapons and they will destroy us. We put pressure on Goff and we're in for the possibility of Jared Goff doing Jared Goff under pressure things. And that is the way to beat this Detroit Lions team. Also get Dan Campbell thinking way too aggressively and go 0 for 5 on fourth down again. Let him go as stupid as possible because he's now got this concern.
4, right?
Yeah, no doubt. Let's make sure that their errors are magnified.
All right. And speaking of tough schedules, the Chicago Bears currently in first place in the NFC North with a 7-3 record, but their tough schedule down the road. Steelers, Eagles, Packers, the stingy defense of the Cleveland Browns, back to the Packers, 49ers, Lions. So good luck, Bears fans, with that. Couple of interesting side notes. In week 12 here, the Packers will have 3 NFC North opponents in a row: Minnesota, Detroit, Chicago.
Vikings and Lions and Bears, oh my.
Oh my.
Oh my. All right. Fun fact, it was 1 year ago today that the Green Bay Packers got their only NFC North win in 2024. At the moment, the Green Bay Packers only have 1 win in the division in 2025. So this stretch of these 7 games, the 5 division games in the last 7, is key for Green Bay to play strong, win the division, get a good seed in the playoffs.
We need a home game in the playoffs, and that means winning your division. There's nothing else to it than that. We've got real competition with the Lions. I think the Lions still can right their ship. We're not that far ahead of them, first of all. And the Vikings are certainly off this year, but I think the Bears are more likely to be at 9 or 10 wins. But I still could see them get a little bit lucky, and combine that with us and the Lions not playing so great, they could still sneak into it. And
no.
I didn't say that's what I thought was going to happen, but I could see it happening. It's a possibility, right? We got to make sure it doesn't happen. That's the thing, right? We've got to make sure that we win both games against the Bears.
With that, Neil, safe travels. I look forward to seeing you on Sunday. Jeff, Neil, happy Thanksgiving, because we won't be chatting next week. We'll be back in December as we pick it up from there. If you're watching us on YouTube, please hit subscribe, leave a comment. You can find the GBC podcast at Green Bay Chat. That's all one word. On Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, Blue Sky, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. On Facebook, it's the GBC podcast Green Bay Chat. And please follow us on any and all of those social media platforms. And may you fully appreciate the magnitude of your impending good fortune. Thanks for joining us.
Good night.
Good night.